Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to day 28. It is a Friday, so congratulations to making it through the week. Good morning, Penny.
Good morning. I'm so excited Kelly Turner's here. One of my favorite humans.
It's my pleasure to introduce a friend and a colleague of mine, Kelly Turner, who teaches mathematics at Trabuco Hills High School here in Southern California. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. How are you?
What are you teaching this year?
So this year, this is actually my first year at Trabuco, even though it's my 20th year of teaching. So it feels like a new teacher. I'm teaching Algebra 2 and Geometry this year.
But you've taught like everything.
Oh yeah, I've taught everything from Algebra 1 through AP Calculus BC. And so I've seen all the levels, and I really enjoy every single one of them. My favorite, to be honest, is calculus, just because it's interesting, and you start to see how all the different strands of mathematics come together.
So I have no idea. What are you doing on this? Calculus is interesting. Like, who are you? What? But no, seriously, Kelly, when I've looked on your Facebook page before, I have seen these students saying, Ms. Turner, you really made a difference. You helped me understand math. Like many of them calculus students, that's a huge thing.
I think calculus, I think it's a misconception. It seems like it's this crazy high level, can't touch it kind of math, but it's quite the contrary. Math is really about, or the calculus part of it is just about how things change over time. And that could be in terms of particles in the air. It has to do with air control. It has to do with climate change. It has to do with number of people who move in and out of Disneyland. I mean, it's always about rates of change and how it's never ending. So it's really all around us, which I know is kind of nerdy to say, but math is all around us. That's how I view it.
So here we have Penny Kittle, language arts instructor, Kelly Gallagher, language arts instructor. What the hell are we doing with a math teacher today, Penny?
Well, I got to see Kelly teach, and one of the reasons that I went to your room is the idea of quick writing became writing next to graphs and tables and charts and thinking about math as these daily writing practices. And I was so intrigued because it wasn't just that the idea is so creative, and we'll link to your website and also people can see it, but it was the way that kids were thinking and talking about math because they were writing about math. Could you just say more about that?
Yeah. So I kind of think of it like this. A lot of people who come across a math teacher say, how do you tie in the real world? I think that's probably the most common question a lot of math teachers get. And I kind of don't like that question because I think it should really be the other way around. How are we taking the real world that my students all know so well and tying that to my math classroom? I'd rather see it that way because that's where I think a lot of the ideas come from. I would love to talk about linear functions. Oh, great. That's exciting. But I don't like to start a chapter like that because the kids don't know anything about that yet. But if I just say, the steps you took to get up here, the incline of that, when you guys drive up a driveway and this ramp is this, when we talk about all the experiences they have in their everyday life, and if I could pull that and make that my linear function lesson, then I've got them because they understand that side. They don't quite know what linear function means yet, but I can tie that academic language later. I think I need entry points and experiences that they experienced since they were little kids. I need to hold on to those and bring those into the classroom.
And it's interesting to hear you say talk, and we know how important talk is in making meaning. But I think what Penny and I are particularly struck with is the idea of kids writing in a math class, because I've tried to help other math teachers see the value of that. And I often refer to your work. Can you speak specifically how and where does writing fit in a math class?
That's a great question. I I think writing should be across all disciplines, first of all. I don't see why math should be divorced from this in any way. We have to be able to communicate through writing, through speaking to each other about how to go through problems. So what I like the kids to do is I use graphs as a bridge to get them to write. I think that with every graph, there's a story. And if there's a story that they can unfold by just looking at pieces of data, that's a starting point for them to talk about, oh, the graph went up, then the graph went down. Great, but we can start like that. But now let's talk about the word increase. Let's talk about the word increasing sharply. Now we use words like that to help them really see what does sharply mean. And then it helps them understand the steepness of something. I start to fold in a lot of those words to help them create these sentences that have a little more specificity to their writing when they.
Well, you're teaching reading skills. I mean, you're teaching inference.
Yes.
Why did it increase? What's not said on the graph, as some of the same work that Penny and I do.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I feel like if kids are seeing it in their English class, they're seeing the same kind of writing in their history class, and even science for that matter. I need to help them with that in my math class. So I've noticed it more as I taught the AP level. A lot of those students, they need to justify why something is. You can't just end an equation and say X equals 5 and done. You know, you need to actually explain, why did you get 5? Tell me about your logical steps, because on an AP exam, you need to be able to understand that kid just from on paper. So if they don't have the writing in it, I think it's not as solid or I guess believable. So the writing really ties it together for them. So I want to see my non-AP kids do the same thing. I don't see why it should be any different for a non-AP kid. So
what is this? Sorry.
Go ahead, Penny.
No, just what is this graph of the week? Can you tell us what it is, where it came from?
So yeah, this graph of the week, it was an activity that I had created where the students can have a chance to write about a graph or table or infographic for that week. I like to choose something that relates to current events typically, or something that's of interest to them. This started back actually when I was at UCLA in the year 2000. And it was originally just, how can I get my kids to see that there is math beyond their textbook? Because that's all they seem to know. Open the book, let's do this section 7.3 today. That got really boring for me real fast. And I was only my first year teaching. I didn't like it. And I thought, you know what, when I go home and I see the newspaper, there's graphs. When we had newspapers back then, right? And there's other publications, now there's internet, and now on the news, you cannot avoid just how many pieces of information are being thrown at us. Why not have the kids look at it head on and try to analyze what that is? And at the same time, shove in that layer of, well, did you know about this in the news today? Did you, you know, it kind of, and it builds community, it builds discussion. And I love all the other aspects that go along with it. So that started, and then 2006, I will never forget, I walked into Kelly's classroom and said, hey, I need your help. You do this article of the week. I love that idea. How can I do the same with my graph of the week? Because I want my students to see and practice, just increase the volume of the amount of times they get to do this. How do I elicit more writing from them? And I think that when he gave me those ideas, now that prompt has become what you see today. And I just am forever grateful for having him help me that day.
What year was that?
Oh God. 2006.
So give us an example. This is what I love that you're doing, Kelly, is you're teaching math, but you're also teaching literacy. And Penny and I have often made this comment. I don't care what content you teach, you have two jobs: teach your content and teach your kids how to be literate readers of that content in the real world beyond the four walls of the classroom. Can you give us an example of a recent chart that you had kids? I know you don't necessarily pull it up, but what was the subject or topic that you had to analyze?
So the one for this week, it was actually about stimulus checks.
Mm.
And a lot of the families have received stimulus checks in the past couple months. And I thought it would be a great topic because after spring break, honestly, I saw so many people out and about and probably using their stimulus checks in Vegas with me. But, you know, I just, I chose that topic because I think, and this is how I go about choosing any graphs for the week is what's going on in the world right now that has a little buzz. And I didn't know if students knew what a stimulus check was. I think it was a fantastic way to begin. If they didn't know, well, here's your lesson now. Let's talk about what a stimulus check is. But I was very, very happy to know that the students did know. And so it's about how has it impacted the income of the top 1%? How has it impacted the bottom 50%? And there's a bar graph that stems across. I don't know if you need to see it. I have, slides that I can show, but, they see bar graphs, they'll see line graphs. How have their incomes changed when a recession hit, when a stimulus check was brought in at this moment? And that's what I love is for them to see kind of historical context too, and then we're bringing us to today, this past year, what has it done with their incomes now? So that's what they were analyzing.
When do you assign the graph of the week, and do they do the writing in class? Do they do the writing at home?
So when I assign it, it's on a Monday, and I bring it up. For Mondays in this, well, we're in a pandemic year, so this is a little different, but we have a 30-minute class every Monday online, and that's when I introduce it. And I have the kids look at the graph, and I first begin with, what do you know about stimulus checks? I don't even show them the graph yet because I want them to just stir up some discussion, and I want them to put it in the public chat because I want them to see what other students have said. And some kids said, is it free money? Some said, I don't know. And it was great because no one is, criticizing anyone. It's great. It's just this community I already have developed so that we're listening to each other. And then after they see the graph and we discuss, they jot down notes probably. I don't know, their cameras are off, but my hope is that they're kind of jotting down what they think is happening in the graph. And we discuss for about 10 minutes or so. After that, they do have a week to write. I don't really disrupt that unless they have questions. Now, in a typical school like setting, I normally have them in groups and they discuss among their groups and they write right then and there.
That's what I saw when I was there. And I was just so impressed the way they would support each other and think together. And I remember thinking that you were teaching so much more than math. Just the idea of the economic impact of a stimulus check is often seen as outside of Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 or geometry, when instead it's the vital piece that makes math interesting.
Yeah, I love that part of it. I feel like I teach this graph of the week, but then I also teach this math. I feel like graph of the week has become the source of all things fruitful in my class. It has given me layers that I never thought I would ever have. So it builds community, trust in my students and within each other. So the number of topics and uncomfortable topics that we kind of delve into has really made it more comfortable for all of us to discuss them. Abortion, gun control, mass shootings, mental health. I mean, I try to touch on as many topics as I can to make them, I know it's uncomfortable, but let's try and give them a chance to have a little space. And even if they don't speak out loud, that's where the writing is so great because they will write and write. Some kids who never talk about math, but they can't wait to write about my graph of the week. It's because it's on a topic they're very emotional about or that they're very, have opinion about. And that's what I love to see. So that has created this other, very warm environment I have with my kids. They now have more current event awareness. And then there's some math. But, I still get it done. I still get the math done. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of standards I've got to cover. But I think the fact that they're bought into and feeling like home with me, that they'll listen to anything else I want to say about math. So that
Well,
part's not hard.
it's relevant and makes math relevant. And, I've often said that school is exactly the place where students need to have conversations about hard things.
Yes.
And that's exactly the place where teachers have to teach students on how to reasonably disagree or to have an open mind to listen to other points of view. Doesn't mean you have to agree, but
Right.
that we create a template for kids on how to have meaningful, respectful conversations.
That's right. And that's what I feel like they have when they write. And it's amazing. Some start off just talking about a few things. They're a bit shy. You could tell in the writing they're a bit shy. But then as I give, pointers like, hey, I think you were onto something with this sentence. I think you could have elaborated. Try that next time. I never grade on grammar, run on sentences, structure. I'm just glad they're writing, even if it's about their feelings, because they might have feelings about it. I usually let them.
So I get it. And I think it's really important. And I'm not undermining the idea of kids writing about their feelings, is I think when you build that community, as you said, you can take kids anywhere you want. But the writing at times actually help them to deepen their understanding of the mathematics that are involved.
Oh yeah, certainly. It doesn't start at first, but yeah, after many tries, they will start to understand why numbers are appearing the certain way. The mathematics, when you look at the rise and fall of something, for example, and we talk about percentages, steepness, those, I start to fold in some of the math topics that I'm teaching my kids in the class into that. It doesn't come quickly or naturally, but it's over time. Yeah, they definitely understand more about why something looks the way it does, certainly.
So Kelly, you've been doing this for 15 years, from 2006 till now. What's changed? What have you learned in that process?
Oh, that's a great question. I've learned that kids know a lot. They know a lot about topics, and I would not have known how kids stand on things or feel without having known that, without this graph of the week. So I think the topics that are chosen, and usually it's because it's what the kids wanted. The kids, I've asked them early in the year, like, what would you guys like to see? What's your interest? And that kind of, I got a whole pile of graphs from them. And so I'll pick from there sometimes, like, hey, this is kind of interesting. So I've learned that it's helped them have a voice, have a platform for, I mean, some kids, they said, I thought I felt this one way about gun control. And then after I started writing, I just flipped. And it's like, this writing does something quite magical. It seems magical, but I understand your brain is activated in a way that you cannot do without pencil paper. I think it's quite different writing versus typing. I do think there's something else that happens when they write, and I want to keep that going. All those years that I think I've noticed, it's great to talk about current events. The kids like that. And also I've noticed a lot of the teachers who want to be on board with this are not math teachers, actually. And I'm a little bummed. It makes me bummed out, but I'm happy that even a history teacher or a science teacher, English teacher is very interested. And that's great, because I think the math teachers possibly are concerned with the grading. When I'm not, I don't think much about the grading at all, to be honest. I think when you don't grade it, it's better. Anyway, that's another, topic, but.
Well, I think you see it as practice, and that's why the grading isn't as important. And that allows kids then to experiment with their thinking and to come to an understanding without the pressure of, I need 3 examples of this, or I need to include this. You're really getting them an authentic experience.
Often with article of the week, I would have kids, do one every week and just credit, no credit.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the end of each quarter, pick one that shows your richest thinking and have them revise one and turn it in.
That's great. Yeah.
Your approach reminds me, I don't know if you've read the book, The Mathematician's Lament,
No?
but
Oh,
I
you
will,
love it. I love it.
we will put it in the
Yeah.
Padlet, but it really is it's a plea that math is being taught too dryly, that math is a beautiful art. There's a beauty in mathematics that is drowned. We have the same conversations in ELA. It's drowned in worksheets, it's drowned in quizzes. The inquisitiveness, the inquiry is drowned out. But there is a beauty there, and it just reminds me, I think, of the approach. So for
You know
any
what
of
I
you
love
listening,
about that book, that little tiny book, is that he wrote it and then he left it on chairs all over a huge math conference. He just wrote it, put it in paper, and put it everywhere. And people started asking for him to get it printed. So he did. But that idea that teachers are filled with this vision and thinking, and I can see your graph of the weeks being on chairs all over a math. I used to go to NCTM. You don't know that, but I taught as much math as English in my first few years. Yeah, even Algebra 1. But I found that the math conferences were rich and exciting. I went to them before NCTE, and that idea of what you're doing, I have a good friend who teaches that way. He's an amazing calculus teacher. And I just think that you're making math present, like important now for kids. And that's just so important for them.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope that's what I'm doing. Some of the content, I have to say, it's not always. I think that's why math teachers are having a hard time with this, is because the graph of the week is not always directly tied to the content that they might be currently teaching, or it's hard to find those exact parallels. But it wasn't meant to be that way. It was meant to be, well, let's see what it's like outside the content.
Mm-hmm.
But when it does match up, my God, like that's when my lessons, I feel, are the most powerful. So like exponential functions, they look like this. We all know they look like that. But
oh, sure we do.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Now we know with coronavirus, we know how the virus exploded. But when I talk about, like, well, coronavirus is one sad case to talk about. But if I say, let's look at the Mega Millions jackpot, starting from the first week all the way to the 10th week, no winner. Let's look at why the numbers are that way. I'd rather look at it like that and then talk about, well, by the way, that's an exponential function. Okay, let's tie that in now. But when they've already invested so much of the understanding of why the numbers worked out that way, now they're bought in and now they get it. And then I'm like, okay, well, anyway, I'll just show you this dry page in your book just real quick. But, I'm not going to delve deeper into that. I'd rather talk about the fun lottery,
So we're going to post a link to your website, because
Yeah.
you post a graph of the week every week. I think it's really rich that you're making the point that how to read a graph is not something that should just happen in a math class. It should be in English, history, science, should be in all, because it's such a big part of reading post high school. Right. The kids have got to learn how to do this skill. So we will post that in the link. Why don't you just say it out loud, just so we know where to go?
Oh, okay. It's just turnersgraphoftheweek.com. And that's it.
And teachers can download those and use them in their own classrooms, right?
Yeah. You can get it started by clicking on, there's a little page side that says teachers introduce graph of the week to your students. And if they click on that, they'll see I already have PowerPoint presentations that they can download free. And that they can use in their classrooms. It's called a slow graph. I don't know if you've seen, it's like slowly bringing in some parts of the graph to help the kids understand a line graph.
Oh, so smart.
Over 200 PDFs that are downloadable and some Google Docs for them.
Great. And I know that math teachers from all over the place are starting to, and have been into your site for a long time.
Yeah, it's slowly getting there. I mean, I've got about 3,600 subscribers, but it's getting there. I've got some people from New Zealand and Guatemala and Canada.
And
Yeah.
Queen of
subscription,
math.
the subscription again is free, right?
Oh, sure. Yes. Yep.
So we often end with a couple of random lightning round questions that have nothing to do with your topic. And so I think I might know the answer to this one because I know you personally, but I'll just throw it out there. Who's your favorite baseball player?
Shohei Ohtani
I mean, he's crazy, right?
on the Angels. Yeah. He pitched a pretty good game the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that kid. He's I don't know. He's a great player. Yeah.
Well,
I'd love to go through the numbers of these we've done so far to see how many times you bring up baseball. I'm pretty
I don't
sure
care.
a lot.
I don't care. We have 3 more and I'm going to bring it up 3 more times. I just want to say that I've never seen a player in my entire life who can throw a ball 100 miles an hour and hit it 450 feet. So he's definitely a unicorn. Penny, what's your
Mine is,
question?
what's the most recent song you downloaded?
Oh, God. I can't remember the last time I actually had to download a song.
Are you all on Spotify? So what's the most
Yeah.
recent song that you're connected to?
Oh, geez. Oh, it's probably one for my son. Let's see what's on my phone right now. This is embarrassing. Okay, let's take a look here. Oh, the last thing I downloaded was Chris Body. He's a trumpet player that I really like. I downloaded his entire December album.
How do you spell his last name? We'll put that in the post as well.
This guy.
Oh
There
my
you go.
goodness. I got to check that out. That sounds beautiful.
It's
Sounds good.
amazing. I've seen him in concert just once, but I really love his music. I can have it playing in the background while I do work. It's kind of nice.
Which you're still at work. We need to let you go.
Yeah. We have been on a roll, though, of having some really great end of the week Friday sessions. And I want to say that you've carried that torch admirably.
Yeah.
What a pleasure it was to see you again. And what a beautiful idea, graph of the week. And so we encourage everybody out there to check out Kelly's website at turnergraphoftheweek.com. Kelly, thanks again.
Oh, so awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for